start.
Hi, everybody. I'm Kyle Ellicott, your host for another edition of VCTV, another double-packed episode as we have them all week this week because there is a lot to cover when it comes to the world of venture right now as we're breaking down industries, technologies, and regions around the world. So much is happening so quickly as we come into this last half or last quarter of 2020. It has been a big, impactful year as digitization has happened at a rapid pace and scale and affected everything. And we've been talking a lot about that here on VCTV, but it's getting even more impactful and getting even faster, and we're seeing even more changes, believe it or not. And so we just talked a lot about what's happening and what's changing around manufacturing, supply chains, and logistics. Well, now we're going to talk about consumer. We're going to talk about the products that we make, the products that are made for us, and how we get to them around commerce and e-commerce. You know, yesterday we talked a lot about marketplaces. Today we're moving everything online. What does that mean for us? What's happening? What's changing? We've seen the world of consumer goods dramatically shift and shape over the last 10 years. We saw the rise of crowdfunding, the very quick fall. We saw a lot of companies that shot to the top of the ranks that we all bought, but consumer behavior has been very fickle. One minute we love something, next minute we don't. How do you build a business? How do you invest in these areas? And now with e-commerce, as we talked yesterday about manufacturing and today again about supply chains, how does e-commerce look going forward when everything is not only physical that can be bought online, but now digital comes into that world, when the idea of virtual and digital goods now play a role in everything that we do and how we buy and what we buy. So tons to talk about. Got an awesome guest. We were just talking pre-show as to what they're doing and where they're working at around the world, and very excited to dive in. But first, to your audience, thank you so much for tuning in. I'm glad to have you back here on another edition of VCTV. And for those that are investors in the audience, we would love to have you on today's show or another show like today. So if you want to join and share your thoughts and insights as to what you're seeing from an investor standpoint, please do reach out to Elena, to the LA Token team, and or myself, and we would love to find the right episode and topic for you, entrepreneurs. This is not just for investors. This is also for you. There is a stage here on VCTV every single day for you, where you can actually come on and pitch us in real time as individual investors and to our entire live audience. So reach out to the team and myself. We would love to find the right spot for you to highlight your company and give you the chance, share it with all of us. And also a big shout out and thank you to Elena and to the entire LA Token team for always making VCTV possible every single day on your screen, on your device, anywhere in the world. With that, I'm Kyle Ellicott, your host. Let's dive in. Let's introduce each and every one of our panelists because we've got a ton to talk about today. Noble, welcome back to the show, my friend. It's a pleasure to see you. A short little introduction and a little background for those who may not know you.
Yeah, can you hear me at all, Kyle?
Loud and clear.
Awesome. Yeah, my name is Noble Dracone. I'm the managing partner of Dracone Capital Partners. I've been in the investment space for almost 26 years. I've written 7 books on trading and investing. And in this current iteration, we're focusing a lot the last 3.5, 4 years on the startup ecosystem. I've teamed up with maccelerator.la to raise $40 million to support startups and pre-seed, early seed, pre-series A companies grow, develop, and expand. E-commerce and retail is really the primary focus globally right now and how we're going to distribute it. So yeah, I'm excited to be here, Kyle.
Awesome. We're excited to talk with you and unpack a lot of that. As I know, and some may not, Los Angeles actually has a very thriving, very quietly thriving ecosystem around consumer product development and manufacturing. There's actually quite an ecosystem there. There's also a lot of consumer products and goods that come from Southern California. So something to be mindful of. As we also have one of the largest, if not the second largest, I believe, shipping ports as well out of Long Beach. So get ready to stay tuned on that. Matt, Welcome to the show. First time with Elena and I here on VCTV. If you can, a little introduction, a little background.
Sure. Thanks, Kyle. And thanks, Elena, for having me. I cut my teeth many years ago, probably 20 years ago, as a tech investor, specifically as a corporate investor, having been one of the founders of Motorola Ventures. So very much traditionally involved in evaluating young technology startup companies globally in kind of the communications IT settings. About 10 years ago, I opened up my own family office and kind of migrated from true technology into consumer technology because I loved things that people could touch and people. And so I opened a family office called Rudyard Partners, where we look at investing in early and young consumer product companies. And then just recently, about 6 months ago, I launched a brand management agency that looks to help young brands with everything from product development, distribution, sales strategy, visibility. And it is all in the CPG space, the non-technology space. So I keep every decade shedding technology as a subject matter, and now I'm almost out of complete technology, but investing and looking at non-tech consumer products and brands.
Wonderful. Well, excited to see and hear more about that transition from technology to consumer brands. As I've seen a similar shift in the landscape myself in terms of where investment dollars are going. So curious to hear your experience and lessons learned during that process. And Sahil, welcome to the show as well. A little intro, a little background. Oh, you're a little quiet there. It's very, very faint. It sounds like you're about 5 miles away. So I'm not sure if it's a microphone issue as well, but no, it's super, super faint. So I'll let you work on that for just a second. So Sahil is actually joining us as the founder and managing director of Founders Capital as well. And I know he's just got a little technical difficulty as we all experienced during fun Zoom meetings. So we'll let him finish that, fixing it here, and we'll have him back on here in just a moment. But gentlemen, without further ado, I want to jump into today's panel and kind of really just start with the base and the broad is what is the current state when we look at consumer products and e-commerce. What do you see as the current state of things today and looking forward? A lot has happened, as we just said. A lot of new products have come and gone, but what do you see as the current state of consumer products and e-commerce? Matthew, let's start with you on that first question.
Sure. I think there are two real interesting trends that I've been more recently involved in looking at. The first is product and brand discovery. So it's kind of e-commerce-ish, it's kind of marketplace-ish, but it's really not in retail, not in the physical bricks and mortar, but really at home is now going to start to learn about a new brand or a new product. They're doing it from a trusted source. And we're seeing now these kind of online festivals start to be designed and created as almost like a virtual mall being brought to your home. And This Week Network, Los Angeles-based network, is starting its 2-day online festival where every hour there's a new brand, there's a DJ performance, there's a product drop. And it's all under the network brand, which is kind of an aggregator for the culture. And then even earlier today, Complex Media announced its upcoming Complex Land, which will be a kind of a 3D online virtual marketplace / digital version of ComplexCon. And I think, again, that's somewhat driven as a e-commerce, e-shop, gift shop type of experience, but it's also a way for these younger brands to cost effectively aggregate to a place where traffic will be. It used to be foot traffic, now it's really going to be digital traffic. And so I think that's one big area that I've started to see. And the other is consumer segments that have really taken shape in light of COVID. Things like health, things like wellness. Um, as a interesting statistic, skateboarding is up 17% over solitary, almost 4 generational now sport, where you're seeing 4-year-olds and automatically is seen an increase. So brands like Vans, brands like Art of Board, which are young, this kind of stay-at-home type of period. So those are some examples of 2 of the hotter things that I've been seeing over the last month or 2.
If only when I was a kid, I could tell my parents skateboarding is going to be huge.
Yes.
Trust me. It might have been a little bit easier of an entrance and maybe a little less painful, maybe a little bit more painful for me nonetheless. But that's actually a very exciting trend. I think that plays a little bit into what we were talking about pre-show too, of the creative side of and the creative expression that people are putting forth around these areas as well. And we'll come back to that in just a minute. But Noble, to you, what are you seeing as the current state of consumer products and e-commerce to further on Matt's point?
Yeah, I'm the CEO of Where Play Games, and so I in addition, is kind of the reason why I even got back into tech and tech investing. And I filed a patent on augmented reality and using interactivity with clothing and apparel to be able to kind of get people out and about so kids can play games. I think we did a Kickstarter that was the first only mother-approved food fight with clothing, so kids could digitally throw food at each other. And so for me, apparel is really a big focus of what I like to kind of watch as far as trending. And it's been very unique what's going on in the apparel industry. You have the whole entire trend with the strawberry dresses and how the influencers are really starting, the ones who are really focused are starting to make a significant mark in getting people to follow both trends and find new items. And so, to Matt's point, it's becoming where people are only operating or interact with people that they trust. And so those people who are big influencers are bringing in, tie-dye sweat clothes, right? Have become the whole vogue thing online. And so you're starting to see how the influencers who marginally were being paid attention to are now, as kind of like a segment that we should kind of think about investing, or starting to really aggressively receive sponsors in even bigger way. And, it was to Matt's, prescience to even create a company that is managing that brand. That brand influence is huge. There's a lot of things that are happening in the apparel space that have shifted, right? So people have gone to casual clothing, but these things have been selling like hotcakes. To talk about Vans and sports apparel, this has become the norm, where people are wanting to just wear casual and relaxed clothing. Last time, if you remember a couple of weeks back, I shared with you how I was influenced to buy tie fisherman pants. Never bought them in my life, would have never thought about them whatsoever. And all of a sudden, because they're selling for like $10 on Amazon and they pop up in my algorithm, everybody in my family has a pair of tie fisherman pants. So what you're finding is the people that we trust. Amazon, I follow, and I really, I've been Amazon Prime member since they started in late 90s, because I realized the value that I was receiving. It's the same instance that apparel is finding a resurgence, because now you're not going to get the foot traffic in the stores. And so understanding how to advertise using both influencer marketing. And what I've noticed is that the aggression on the ad retargeting has become something needs to be done with it. I think that it's become ubiquitous in a way that doesn't make sense. Being a gaming company, we buy. We're right now searching out new games to acquire and develop. And I was on a website they were about to buy to include our portfolio, and I was ad retargeted something that I was going to buy Dr. Squatch, shaving cream, but this is a girl's kid's website that the ad now repopped into. And I'm like, you guys have to at some point figure out how to monitor how you're putting these ads out, because it was completely incongruous, right? But at the end of the day, I think that the smart e-commerce is both taking soft items that are cheap and inexpensive for people to buy and impulse buy a lot better, like clothing, as well as, because we're in AR, because we've done the merger of AR and virtual reality, the focus is really going to like what the complex is doing and creating these hyper digital experiences in the virtual world to make people have more accessible. In fact, I just got a message to go to the Chinese, like the Chinese expo of the different brands on display to import to the US. And a significant part of it has a virtual reality or augmented reality experience attached to it so that you can see the items in 3D. So these are the things that are happening on the brand side. So there's been no real slowdown because Amazon has taught people to receive things immediately. But I think that, you have to think about your business in a different way.
Well, even we saw Decentraland, there was some news recently come out that they're, not only has it been a big virtual experience and world, and there's a few others like Wear VR that's doing virtual concerts in addition to conferences, but Decentraland actually has an entire world specific to China that's actually highlighting some of this stuff, as you're mentioning as well. So you're seeing this transformation, as we've talked about on previous shows, of physical to digital, but very, very much physical, and taking those pieces of land, bringing them into a digital experience world to then build new or current experiences on top of these as well. And this is all playing a bigger role into the virtual economy that we've talked about here as well. That's projected to hit over $100 billion and growing here in the next couple of years. So I think what you and Matt are mentioning is spot on to what we're all seeing. And for those tuning in, this is key on where you should be focusing, whether you're a physical company or a digital company with goods. If you're not digitizing, you're missing out. And as we used to say in the world of Internet of Things and wearables, if you're not doing this in 5 years, you're dead. So, definitely be paying attention. That's my bold statement. I'll let Matt and Noble comment on that here in just a minute. Sahil, are you with us?
Yeah. Can you hear me, guys?
Loud and clear. All right. So you're on the spot. Before you get to your intro, I'm gonna pause you. Before you get to your intro, we're gonna jump into the question. So in the question is, what do you see as the current state of consumer and e-commerce? We'll get to your intro in a little bit. Let's just jump right in.
Look, I'm based in the Middle East, which is probably one of the strongest retail brick and mortar places in the world. So malls are pretty much the norm there. You have malls that are so big and that have so many brands, and due to the hot weather, that's the only exciting part you have to do on the weekend, unless you want to go on 40 degrees Celsius, etc. So now with the pandemic, etc., and what's happening, so a lot have been moving digital. But what's funny to see is that this trend actually started to happen like a few years ago. So the largest mall operator in the Middle East region just created the biggest competitor to Amazon in the MENA, which called Noon.com. So that they did that, they acquired a couple of smaller players in e-commerce. They're full of brands. They have warehouses in Saudi Arabia that are like 10 football fields. Amazon itself entered the region, and by purchasing a local player called Souq.com. So it's been a very intense war on the digital and e-commerce. And basically what these guys have been doing, because it's sort of a duopoly, it's like they're trying to acquire other smaller either retailers, online commerces that have been, so it's growth through acquisition mainly. And the other thing that's booming in the area is that this is an area where the GDP per capita is among the top 5 in the world in terms like you have 10 countries in the top 20, and people spend a lot. And when you take out the experience of going to the mall, which is due to the lockdown, you have to offer alternatives, not only, you know, the plain e-commerce. So you have to do a premium experience, and, you know, get, you know, the feel that you're buying something worth, you know, the price tag. And there has been some startup coming, and mainly, like Noah said, using AR and VR as a tool for you to, like, imagine yourself carrying a Louis Vuitton. So you just, they partner, let's say, with Louis Vuitton. You show the camera on your hand, you see, like, okay, oh, this bag looks well on me, or this Nike pair of shoes is looks amazing. And these are, most of them are either backed by Techstars or 500 startups. So they do that, and it's been driving, you know, a lot of partnerships, especially on the traditionally, you know, high margin branded luxury items or sports brand, etc. Yeah, it's a bit, and it's becoming a competition between retailers on how to provide the best experience as well.
Well, and to your point, I mean, experience is the name of the game. The other is influence, right? Influencers. So would love to hear your opinions around the maybe shifting role of influencers as brands and influencers kind of look towards more digitization and more digital roles. How does the landscape or the role of an influencer change for a brand? And Matt, I'm going to start with you on this. I feel like you probably have a lot of experience in this area with the very big neon sign in the background, but where is the role for influencers? How much is that still impactful or not if we're doing more digital foot traffic versus physical foot traffic? Oh, Matt, that's to you. There you go.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think one of the things that the pandemic did was I think brought influencers more into parity, meaning, you know, it wasn't like who threw the biggest party at Cloud House or who threw the biggest party at all of these, you know, Art Basel. Instead, now you're pretty much got to compete with your own camera at home. And you can build your own following fairly easily if you truly are unique. So the type of influencers have changed over the last 5 or 6 months. There's by far more micro segments now of what makes up an influencer. There's a story of a woman here in Boston who I've known, and she shared with me that she's younger, maybe 30, 31, and she watches a high kind of influencer, influential person. She, you know, as a skincare influencer, washes her face for an hour every night, and she has 3,000 people watch this woman wash her face every night. And so I'm not going to criticize whether it takes an hour to wash a face or whether it's worth washing your face for that long. But as an example, you know, 3,000 people want to watch this woman give presumably very educational and product shout outs, tidbits and valued information that have now made her an influencer. Others are home workout. You know, as gyms closed, not just here, but certainly places like Florida and the South, all of these fitness instructors went online. And while Peloton, you know, rose and continues to soar, a lot of home trainers had to kind of sink or swim and turn their kind of physical gym clientele into now, oh my God, I can't go into a gym anymore. I'm going to need to figure out how this business works at home. And I've seen home fitness influencers grow from 9,000 followers to 60,000 followers in 120 days. Yoga with Adriene, she has almost 1 million followers now, and she's a yoga instructor. So the notion of the influencer has really changed from being a celebrity of maybe pre-COVID to now anybody that has a following who has been able to build a community around a specific subject matter or a specific interest. And that can be anything from art, sport, fitness, culture, food, beverage. These are all kind of macro verticals, but inside of those, there are communities that, every day will have, wine tastings online with an influencer or other things that used to be more physical. So the influencer themselves, I mean, there's 4 influencers on this call right now, all here, whether or not, our communities have crossover or our communities are larger, or our followings are larger. Influencers, I think, have been able to take advantage of kind of a resetting of what it means to be an influencer over the last 5 months and be able to create these really interesting segmented communities of influence.
Absolutely. And a side joke is, Yeti mics are still, Blue Yeti mics are still very difficult to get. Webcams are difficult to get. Lighting is difficult to get. The idea of an influencer podcasting, vlogging kit is near impossible or very long delayed if you're looking to get it. And while that's a true statement and also a slight joke, it's also, to Matt's point, how big this is becoming, that everyone has a community. Anyone can do something with that community, whether it's provide them an experience and or influence with brands involvement or not as well. And that can then drive consumer behavior and also potentially product purchases as well. And, you mentioned the face washing beauty or the face washing video. I mean, the beauty industry has exploded more than we thought would happen. And we thought this was going to be something that would go over the next 3 to 5 years as AR really started to come into play. Now, the beauty part of the industry around consumer has just absolutely taken off during this time of digitization, which is extremely exciting to watch happen. Noble, to you, I mean, what is the role and how have you seen the role of influencers really shift and shape when it comes to brands?
Yeah, it's a mixed bag, right? Prior to what's happening now, a lot of influencers were able to manipulate the system really aggressively and get away with it. So buying likes, pushing traffic to themselves, making themselves look bigger than they are. And when I started this project about 4.5, 5 years ago, we had already shifted our focus to quote unquote micro influencers. We had a clothing product that was geared towards children, that we wanted to have some of the smaller influencers who only had 100,000 or 200,000 following, because we knew that the likelihood of that following to be real was far greater than someone who had 5 million or 10 million, right? And so now the backlash, because influencers are being scrutinized so aggressively, the birth and the life of the micro influencer is huge, because the likelihood that those people are real and will buy based on suggestion has moved exponentially. Recently, we buy music royalties, and one of the issues in music is the same thing, that when you get a new album out, the drive is to push up the plays to increase streaming revenue. Well, most recently, you talk about apparel or the makeup industry, music has become huge again because of the streaming. There's been an aggressive push to determine, can we trust the listenings that we're receiving? And if not, how many are we supposed to slash? Well, they came across recently, and I'm trying to remember, just read the article. You read these articles so fast. But one of the issues is that there was no shenanigans happening for the listening for this new K-pop group. It was really their followers driving up and repeatedly listening so they could make money. Well, it was almost 50% cut in half the number of listenership that they would be paid on, because the assumption was, is it legitimate to get your influence, your people to listen to your music that much just for you to make money? Or is it akin to driving or buying traffic? And so these are issues that, as you start having the influencers move along and start getting them to influence the behavior of people, we're going to run into a lot more of these issues where are you just too big of an influencer, that you're making things happen that algorithmically wise is impacting the numbers? So, and I love the spectrum, right? So you have the large influencers who have that issue, and the smaller influencers who are actually now starting to receive true sponsorship and truly being paid. Someone with 3,000 followers that has every single one of them with an 80% or a 70% conversion ratio is far more important than someone with 1 million with a 0.05 ratio of conversion. So now the metrics are becoming so much more important. So if you're a smart influencer and you're really paying attention to your own metrics, that's huge. The second thing that I've seen in the influencer marketing, and we're talking to a few now, is private labeling. Many of them realize that the power that they wield is better to their benefit to team up and own a percentage of what they're selling, as opposed to just being a mouthpiece to sell something. Whereas before they're getting 10% or 15%, now they're thinking, well, maybe I can get 50%, maybe I can get 70% if I'm the one who's branded and doing the drop shipping. So the smart influencers are starting to realize the ability they have on moving the e-commerce landscape.
Absolutely. I mean, that's what I'm working on with Matt. We're actually working on a shoe together that's going to drop. We're going to airdrop it. Just kidding. But no, I mean, that's
I'm
exactly
in.
your point.
Hey, Kyle, I'm in. Let's go.
There you go. All right, Matt. After the show, we're dropping it. So get ready, ladies and gentlemen in the audience. We're putting together a shoe. Matt's leading design, creative, and Noble's my first buyer. I'm going to drop this to everybody. Get ready. There we go. That's what it looks like. Patent pending. Stay tuned. But all jokes aside, and I hope we will come back to that fun fact in just a minute. But Sunil, I mean, for you, an influencer, I mean, on the Middle East side, how is influencer marketing really changing? Because I know that there's a ton that happens there around this space, but what are you seeing as the influencer marketing landscape kind of shift and shape from the Middle East perspective?
Yeah, thinking about a little bit more about the market in the Middle East, I think the MENA region is one of the highest consumption of video views on all platforms. So people just go to Instagram, YouTube, etc., and they see. But the big trend has been more, you have a lot more influencers than other places, but the following ranges between 100 and 300K. So it was like Noble saying, being a little bit of micro influencers, and some have taken a lot of increased and like doubled and tripled their followers by leveraging some stuff due to the lockdown. Just to talk about a little bit this, you've seen fitness, you've seen beauty, you've seen home, even home stuff increase a lot in terms of influencer. But what I think drives the most revenue, and I think also Noble touched upon this, is that most influencers, and especially the ones that with a strong following, not necessarily being numbers, but strong loyalty, usually are used as influencers by either local brands or designers or new brands entering the market, because it's cheaper and more efficient than to go directly against Puma, Nike, Adidas, Louis Vuitton, any brand. So these brands, the big brands usually sell themselves. But when you have, an influencer that has 50,000 or 100,000 views per day in the demographics of, let's say, women between 19 and 30, and she's showcasing this new brand and this new designer, it gives a lot of push to these brands. And one other interesting thing in the Middle East is that influencer power is so strong that now you have startups, agencies for influencers. Like there's a startup that launched like a year ago called Influencers 2.0, and basically what they do is they match brands, whether small or big, with the proper influencer to target in the proper country in the Middle East, and they charge on that. So the presence of platforms like these show that, yeah, it's pretty much an influencer driven market. And
Mhm.
what helps also this, especially for the new and small brand. And by the way, I've read an article somewhere that most of the small brands on Amazon, the four-letter brands,
Mhm.
just literally mean nothing. They just look cool. And that's how, in the Middle East, they're able to drive sales. Like designer X, designer Y, I'm wearing her
Mhm.
dress, I'm in this event,
Mhm.
etc. Oh, yeah. So it's more. The big brands usually use the traditional, cost,
Who's who?
yeah,
Mhm.
direct consumer social media platform.
Mhm.
So yeah, there's this divide
So
mainly.
we're unfortunately coming to time here, but one thing we didn't talk about, and you just tipped on it, is the new model that was introduced. As I saw an article recently in Forbes that goes from direct to consumer to direct to avatar, right? This idea that we are moving so digital, and that instead of dropping products directly to us, that we will be looking at those digital purchases, Matt Noble, as you were mentioning, and be sending those right to our avatars, those characters, those creations, those digital representations of us online, that we'll start buying merchandise, buying goods, and buying the like for them as well. And I know a company, Genies, that's out there that's doing a lot of this in the space right now as well. So definitely check out the direct to avatar model, D to A, that's starting to rise on a global level as well. And we're also seeing this in Fortnite. We're seeing this in Animal Crossing. I mean, a number of these big games that, I'm name dropping a few, but there's tons of them out there that are really taking advantage of this new model as brands are getting involved in this. But gentlemen, we are coming to time, so it is time for the lightning round. Want to come to you for your closing thoughts and also areas of opportunity. So those that are listening as investors and entrepreneurs, where would you give them advice on areas of opportunities to be paying attention to in this space? And then where can everyone find you online? So Sunil or Sahil, let's start with you. Areas of opportunities that you see around consumer and e-commerce, and then where can everyone find you online?
I think what drives the most sales and excitement is limited editions, special drops, limited runs. Usually these disappear in a matter of seconds. A few weeks ago, I wanted to buy a poster for Mondo, from Mondo.com, an X-Men poster. So
Mhm.
I kept refreshing. It was gone in under a minute. So just boosting something by giving exclusivity, by giving a limited drop, and by targeting as well, certain demographics is I think it's a big trend. It's pretty prominent in the US, but I didn't see this yet in the Middle East. And for a market that's so big in terms of spend, I think that it can be a great idea, especially in terms of limited editions, flash sales, etc. And in terms of contact, so basically I'm on, you can either follow me on my LinkedIn, and I'm reacquiring my domain name and pivoting to a new company. So basically I'm not just an investor. I'm an investor who invests into tech companies, but I'm also a pivot expert.
Mhm.
So basically, if a fund has a company that's gone under the water, and they have some money, and they want to to pivot and to change business models, that's my specialty. And
All
I've done like
right.
six or seven projects. And I know
Yep.
Nobel likes gaming. I've done gaming. I love gaming as
You
well.
got you got a new connection here, Noble. Thank you, Sahil. Noble, to you, any closing thoughts around opportunity areas that people should be paying attention to, and where can everyone find you online?
Man, so I'll hit it on the button. I love so if you're familiar with SportX, it's and I hope I'm getting the name right, but it's SportX, where it's the online marketplace where people are swapping and selling shoes for years. And the
StockX.
StockX,
StockX.
thank you. Just I appreciate it. Thanks for the correction. So yeah, StockX. And so StockX has been swapping and selling shoes for quite some time now, and they've got a resurgence. They had a whole section on collectibles, and so the reality is you cannot put your head in the sand as an investor and think that things are going to go back to the way they were before. It is literally not a time to operate psychologically like our parents or our great grandparents did, where they didn't have to forge ahead and participate in the brave new world we're in. You have to really open your mind, regardless of whether you understand the technology, regardless of whether, Matt made a great point. You can't make a judgment on whether someone should watch a face for an hour or not, but the reality is 3,000 people watch them. We have to, as investors, step outside of that judgmental part of our mind that stops us from making the bold investments and really just be broad-minded. I would have never started a project where we take games and clothes and do AR if my 3-year-old at the time hadn't inspired me based on knowledge I had about augmented reality. And then we were proven in Kickstarter. So it's easy to reach out to me. You can reach out to me, Noble Dracone, at LinkedIn. You can also use my last name at Twitter to get a hold of me. And I'm always open for new projects. We consult people in finding capital, and I'm just open to hear new ideas. And I like being challenged in my perspective as well. So reach out to me anytime.
Awesome. Matt, close us out. What other opportunity areas do you see, and where can everyone find you in the studio online?
Yeah, so there's probably two areas that I think are really, really interesting that I'm looking at or trying to find. One is men's grooming. I do think that this whole notion of self-care, which traditionally was a very female-driven concept, has moved a lot into men, both millennial men. There's also Gen Y men, and even like me, old-timer Gen X men who are worried well, which means I'm well, but I'm worried about the time that I'm no longer going to be well. And so I'm looking at a variety of things. And so, whatever's been that black hoodie along the lines of the black hoodie concept for millennials, I think there will become a skincare equivalent where maybe Harry's is too old, but there will be some way to monetize these amazing kind of communities of streetwear culture into a men's skincare regimen or brand. I don't know exactly which yet, but something. The second is food. I believe that companies like Truff is really only the tip of the iceberg of creating a modern luxury type of food product. I've had a few drive-bys looking at very high-end olive oil as an example from Greece, where olive oil is $140 a bottle, and you don't even put it on anything. You literally can just spoon it. It's so finite. It's got botanicals. So kind of like the craft liquor space, craft foods, I think in some areas have the potential to become not just great businesses that you'd find in Whole Foods, but actually you'll start seeing these pop up in traditionally luxury retail like Maxfield's in LA or Kith, similar to what Ronnie's done with Kith treats and ice cream, where he has a community, highly engaged community, buying hoodies, sneakers, and now food. And so I think food is another space that I think there's great potential while people are at home. Millennials want to do home cooking parties and all that kind of stuff. I think that there's opportunities there as well. You can find me at I am Growney, IAM Growney, both on Twitter and on Instagram. I'm on LinkedIn, but oddly enough, 80% of my revenue and income every year is driven off of Instagram. And that's from working with brands, it's from brand discovery, it's from partnerships. So I've been thinking, by the way, this is my 4-year anniversary of being off Facebook. So I'm now thinking about maybe 4 years, I might leave LinkedIn soon, and then I'm slowly kind of moving my way off social media as I move into these other areas. So I am Growney, Twitter, Instagram, and like Noble, I love just being contacted about any ideas, just concepts, ideas. I want to learn. I want to constantly kind of understand what people are trying to do and thoughts and all that, especially creatives. So please feel free to hit me up.
Wonderful. Well, gentlemen, thank you all so much. To your audience, thank you so much for tuning in. As you heard, We're all available 24/7, 365 on different social media outlets, but also digitally. You can find us in different places almost anywhere as well. And we'd love to continue the conversation. So much has been talked about today, from the very beginning of conceptualizing idea through manufacturing it, dropping it all the way through the supply chain into our hands or into our screens digitally that we've talked about here on VCTV. So thank you very much for tuning in. If you're an investor that would like to be on a show like today, do reach out. If you're an entrepreneur and would like the chance to pitch us live along with our live audience, do reach out to the team as well. We'd love to have you. And also, if you like what you heard, click subscribe, give us a thumbs up, do reach out. Any feedback, we'd love to hear from you. And also a big thank you to Elena and to the entire LA Token team for making today's VCTV possible and making it possible every single day. Thank you, Noble. I'm Kyle Eckhart, your host. We'll be back here tomorrow with another double episode and more double episodes all week as we continue this big, huge week around everything that's happening and shifting around venture capital, technologies, markets, and regions around the world. With that, I'm Kyle Eckhart, your host. You can find me at Kyle Ellicott on all social media. And we'll be back here